little pen drive, go see Mary, and she'll be able to download it for you if you would like one. I would entertain a motion to adjust the agenda to discuss the MBI evaluation.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So we're adjusting the agenda, and let's talk about the MBI analysis of the Wired West business plan and the agreement.
Well, I think everybody, can I just say, we've never had so many people at a technology committee meeting before. So this is encouraging. But I'm sure everybody is here because you read the MBI letter, and they have basically found some fault with the Wired West business plan, and really the bottom line for us and for the people of Egremont is that MBI has stated that they will not release any of the grant funds based on the current Wired West plan. So, in my personal opinion, I think Wired West is kind of dead in the water, at least for the time being, because that $1.1 million approximately for the town of Egremont for our broadband system, and that's pretty material. So,
I would agree, Jeff. I think that Wired West has never indicated they had a plan to go forward without MBI. I'm not sure that MBI is all on its own necessary to the town of Egremont, but it's necessary to the Wired West business plan. So I think we just ought not to spend any more time on Wired West's various activities until they have a new business plan or MBI changes its mind. I understand from an email that we got from Steve Nelson today saying that they weren't going to be here, that they are meeting, the Wired West board is meeting on Saturday to discuss how to rebut the MBI claims, which doesn't suggest to me that they're going to be sitting down with MBI saying, well, help us create a business plan that suits your requirements. So they're going to go have a fight, and that's not our concern.
That's right.
So that's, so I move that we just suspend.
Well, perhaps as the delegate from Egremont to Wired West, I have some insight into what has been happening.
Well, let's save that for discussion. We just got a motion. If we can finish the motion.
I'd like to move that we suspend discussion or suspend analysis. No more money having our lawyers look at Wired West's various plans until they have something that MBI, unless and until they have something that MBI can endorse.
As long as that doesn't preclude hearing what Jonathan wants to say.
Oh, of course not. No.
What you have is you have a motion on the floor, you need to have a second, and then we have discussion. So, do I have a second? I'll second the motion. I can't make a motion, but I can second it. Okay, now we're open for discussion.
John and I went to a meeting 2 weeks ago with Wired West, and everything has been normal. Wired West has been meeting with MBI twice a week, discussing how to build the network, discussing numerous governance issues, etc. And 3 days ago, at 5:15 in the evening, they received an email from MBI informing them that this letter was being released to all the select boards. They never once in all of these preceding weeks and months in meetings with Wired West did they mention that they were even considering this action. Wired West has, which has also been on NeighborNet, they paid for an outside company which is very well known in Washington, CTC Technology and Energy, which they went to because they're a very fiscally conservative company. They recently actually turned down, or rejected, I should say, a plan from Seattle, Washington for a broadband network because the financials were not acceptable. So they worked with Wired West over a period of weeks. They refined the business plan, and they ended up saying that in their estimation, the business plan is a viable, good business plan. Now, the odd part about this is that MBI was fully aware that this business plan was about to be, that this review of the business plan was about to be presented to them as well. So for some reason, which is a complete mystery at Wired West, MBI decided to take an abrupt action without any consultation with them. They did not say to them at any time, we would like to discuss these things with you. They just rejected them for some reason which is still undetermined by anybody. So Wired West, of course, is going to see what they can do to mitigate the situation. If it means working with MBI to try to produce a business plan that MBI finds acceptable, certainly Wired West is interested in doing that. Wired West is not arbitrarily interested in a fight, as you would suggest. But they also feel, since they have over 20 towns that are actively working with Wired West, that it's not like it's a vendor that is interested in serving the area with no apparent support. They have 20 towns that are actively working with them, that have accepted that they are going to be the organization to build the network for them. And as a consequence, there's no reason on the face of the earth that anybody at Wired West could imagine why MBI would unilaterally take this action without actually having consultation with them. So those things will be determined in the near future, I'm sure. For any people who have been concerned about their $49 deposit, the money has been held in escrow. It has never been touched by Wired West. It is available. You can go to the website. If you go to the area for the sign-up area, you can go to the section and you can ask for a refund of the money. It will be refunded to you. So that is, your money is secure. I personally would hold off asking for a refund until whatever is going to shake out with Wired West will proceed as it will proceed.
The only thing I would like to add to that is I think rather than just shelve it, we keep it moving along as it was presented to us until whatever happens this weekend and in the next week or so. There's no reason we can't keep doing our stuff for the other people that are on here, okay? I have a lot of concerns of some of it. Not that I'm upset a little bit with Wired West too, to just say, in my own feeling, that I think they weren't aggressive enough with MBI. As Jonathan and I both said at a select board meeting here about 6 months ago, that it's very hard dealing with MBI. And the comment was made from one of the selectmen, well, you guys just got to learn how to work together. Well, they have stabbed Wired West in the back. I'm sorry to say it that way, but I feel they have stabbed them in the back many times. Not that Wired West is the best plan out there. I just don't like dealing with MBI. I don't like dealing with them from problems we had with the middle mile. The way it was managed was terrible, as far as I'm concerned, and I believe most of the selectmen would agree with it if they, or at least Mary would, because she had to deal with it. They didn't know what they were doing, and I'm afraid that's the same thing that's going to happen now. I don't mean to throw rocks, but that's what happened.
I don't care if you throw rocks. That's,
Well, I don't want to perceive that that's what I'm doing, Eric.
well, MBI there's a big difference between MBI and Wired West. MBI.
Oh, yeah, no,
has-
I know that.
MBI has $40 million, and we want some of it, and there's a formula for getting it. Wired West doesn't have any plan to go forward without MBI's financial support. So all I would say in support of the motion that I made is that we should not spend any money, any more of the town's money on legal fees or other fees having documents from Wired West reviewed.
The only thing I'm
That's all.
saying is I don't want this committee to stop. The
Stop
money, I
what?
think, has been stopped because I believe that
Stop what?
the money's being spent.
Well, let's stop for a second. Let me provide a little bit of explanation for everybody. This was an ad hoc committee that was formed by the Board of Selectmen to seek out information and to ultimately make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen as to which broadband provider, which broadband build-out service the town of Egremont would use, because the ultimate decision is going to lie with the Board of Selectmen. It's my anticipation that the vote and the recommendations that will come out of this committee will not be unanimous, but that's the democratic process. And we will offer pros and cons for each one of the recommendations that we make to the Board of Selectmen, and the ultimate decision will lie with them. However, I do have to agree with Eric's motion right now, is that until such time as Wired West can submit a viable vetted business plan to the town of Egremont, we should not expend any more of our money on legal fees and any other fees that may be incurred evaluating the proposal from Wired West. Because Wired West's whole concept of operation is based upon receiving grant money through MBI and funding through the town in order to go forward. I would say if in fact they can sit down with MBI and come up with a resolution and come up with a plan that is viable, that can be vetted and vetted satisfactorily, then we will give them another look. But I think until that time, we should not spend any more money evaluating Wired West. We've got two other companies to look at, and I think they have presented us with more than enough information for us to look at. That's just my thoughts.
I don't think actually that, you would be the expert on this, Charlie, that this committee has the authorization to spend the money that we've spent.
No.
We did it under the color of, with the support of the selectmen.
That's right.
So they have to authorize
Yes.
this.
Well, what I was talking about, that they pulled back the, what was it, 5,000?
Well, I think that
We've already, town selectmen have already done
Yeah,
that.
that's what I was talking about. I don't think
Well, that's why I was asking what you thought, that wasn't clear.
that's what I was talking
That's
about.
already
We're not
been told.
That's
spending it.
already done.
Yeah.
That's already been done.
I understand that, that's what I was getting at, I don't think we are spending any, and I just didn't want
Well,
them dropped out because
we
of what
have
happened this
spent
week.
money having their last proposal analyzed by Jeremiah Pollard, who is charging us for all of this work that he's doing on a town council. All of this work that he's
he's also
doing.
splitting it up amongst other towns that he's doing the same work for.
That's not
Necessarily.
clear yet.
Not necessarily.
Do you know that for a fact?
That's
what
You
we
died
were
it, or you heard it somewhere?
Well,
I-
what you need to do, before we start talking about how this is divvied up, the place to go to talk about that is with the Board of Selectmen over this
Okay,
meeting.
I'm just commenting that I heard Mary Brazy at the last select board meeting that I attended where this was discussed, and she made a comment that they would discuss, because he represented other towns, that he would be reviewing the contract for them also, and that there would be a discussion with him about reducing his fee because he would be
But
replicating
that's
the
not
work.
accomplished.
That's
Not
nothing
accomplished, so
writing.
that's not germane. to
There's
what we're
nothing in
talking
writing
about.
that article.
That's, let's call the vote.
No,
Oh, I'm sorry.
well, and other people have
Yeah.
questions and comments too,
Sure.
but so do I.
Can you quantify what we're talking about? Are we talking about $50, $5,000? How much are we making the fuss over here?
What are we talking about? What are you asking
You
about?
have a motion to stop spending money.
Well,
How much money are we talking about?
legal fees would be in the ones of thousands to tens of thousands so far.
To go forward? Or to
No,
spend
already,
until now?
already spent,
Well,
ones
that's,
of
but we
thousands.
can't do anything about it.
No, but the next steps could cost more, and what we don't have is lawyers that have a lot of time. We're not dealing with large firms, we're dealing with a sole practitioner and a guy in a fairly mid-sized bond practice in Boston. So if we give them work, they can't do other work.
Well, can't we just stop giving them this particular work? I don't think
That's
you need a
what-
motion
that's-
to do
That's
this.
what the motion is.
You don't
that's
know,
what the
you don't
motion
need a
is.
Doesn't
motion
have
to
to be
stop.
done in.
Don't talk, don't pick up the phone.
Charlie,
Good advice, I like that, works for me.
doesn't it have to be done by the selectmen, not any?
Well, this is a recommendation and go before the Board of Selectmen, and the Board of Selectmen will just act on it.
Yeah, okay.
Jeff?
Oh, so I just want to kind of summarize and make sure that I'm clear on the motion and all of that. Right now, there's, until Wired West gets its act together and MBI approves it, there's no point in spending time on it.
Exactly.
I get that. But we're going to continue the work of this committee to continue with the financial analyses and the analyses of the other options
Yes,
during this time.
yes. We're not gonna stop business, because we have a lot of work to do.
We do.
So,
We do. And
no.
I don't know about the other people in the room, but I would really like to have broadband service soon.
Me
yeah,
too.
like yesterday. Okay, any other, just go on.
I have a question. Even without, were you going to look into these other two companies anyway, or was it a done fact that if?
No,
no.
So you were going to do this anyway? It sounds
The
like
way,
it
the
has
way
to
the
be
committee
done.
was formed was to look at other vendors that could possibly bring broadband to this town sooner. Right now, when you look at Wired West's proposal, we're looking at a proposal that could may bring broadband to Wavermont by 2020. If you look at the other two vendors, we're looking at a significantly sooner build-out and availability. So what we're trying to do is look at all options and then make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen. So what we're going to continue to do, if in fact this vote goes through, is until Wired West comes up with a viable vetted business plan, we're not going to pay attention to them, but we are going to continue to pay attention to the other two vendors who have submitted proposals to us and who have also submitted financials to us so we can evaluate it.
Charlie, have they been vetted by MBI, the other two?
One has, and one is in the process.
One has been approved by MBI?
It essentially, yes, because they have done other build-outs, yes. And the other one is working on it right now.
One of my concerns with the whole broadband issue is that when we voted at the town meeting, most people were under the impression that we were voting for Wired
No,
West.
you weren't. No, you weren't. No, you weren't. That article was specific.
I don't know. I know what the article said.
Specifically
Charlie,
written to
I'm not
raise
arguing
appropriate.
with the article. I'm simply saying most people were under the impression, and this is a preface to something, if you'd allow me to finish, please. Most people were under the impression that, number one, Wired West was the build-up. Number two, that they were going to get the bond paid off. Number three, they were going to have revenues in the future or dividends in the future. My question is, are we looking for a plan that includes all of that? Because I don't see with the other two companies that is going to be accomplished. That's my concern.
We're still in the study phase, okay? And what you just said was information that was not put out by the town of Egremont. It was information put out by Wired West and other people outside of town government. Town government was very, very careful in writing a warrant article, having the warrant article scrubbed by the finance committee, and putting it before the people and presenting it to the people. So whatever information that came out to the community regarding what they were voting for outside of what the town put out is incorrect information.
Well, the spirit of the vote was.
I don't care about spirit, I care about
If,
fact.
I'm saying this, if it were put out exactly like that from beginning to end with no other fluff on it, it wouldn't have been approved by the town.
That's your opinion.
That's your opinion, yeah, that's all that is. Kevin Zurin's opinion. You
Well,
don't speak for the people.
I had thoughts also, from what I attended the town meeting, from what I've read, especially on the internet, the neighbornet or whatever it is, most of the discussion seems to center on, no, we've already decided Wired West, so why bother looking at other things? There is a lot of misunderstanding, if not misinformation, and I don't know how that got started. But I came here thinking, why don't they look into something else? But I think a lot of townspeople are saying, you can't look into anything else because we've already decided on Wired West. So perhaps this board could issue some kind of clarifying
We actually
statement.
did put out information in, maybe not in the last quarterly newsletter, but we put it in the quarterly newsletter prior to that really detailed out exactly what this board was going to be doing. And that we were going to be holding open meetings for people to come to and attend. And also, the Board of Selectmen meetings are held every other Monday night and are also open to people in the community to come and ask questions.
I'm not criticizing the board, I'm criticizing the citizenry of Egremont
Oh,
who
yeah.
seem to be so misinformed. That there must be some way to get them informed as to what's
Well,
going on.
just, I want to add, sorry, Jeff, I want to add one thing about this. The promise to pay back the town and share dividends with the town was never a real promise. It was a statement, but they refused to back it up contractually. And when they had a meeting in Cummington, which I went to, Bruce Turner went to, Kevin went to, Mike Banziers from our finance committee, my colleague, went to, we asked point blank, will you guarantee this? No, we can't guarantee it. So it's advertising. It's not, you referred to it in an astonishing to me statement on the internet that this was a rock solid guarantee, Kevin. But it's not. That's absolutely nonsense. It's not a rock solid guarantee. It was a promotional statement.
Just to be correct, I didn't say that. I quoted.
No,
I
your statement
quoted
wasn't in
Steve
quotation
Nelson, who
marks,
said this
Kevin.
is.
It
He
wasn't
said
in
this.
quotation marks. So
I'm sorry,
I
but he
think
said it was
that-
ironclad. By the way.
Ironclad, yes, you're right about that. They said they offered us an ironclad guarantee. They offered us nothing of the kind. And I don't know who all these citizens who were misled are, but it doesn't seem like they're sitting in this room. It sounds like you people, you here, pretty much understand what's going on. You just haven't had a lot of information from the town. But we've put out a lot of information. I put out all of this on Egremont Forum, and what's the other group? I'm not very good.
NeighborNet?
In fact, I was so argumentative about it that Marge threw me off. And quite right you were. No, you said this conversation needs to move to some other.
Is that on
Yeah.
Facebook? Yeah, because I don't do Facebook, so I'm
Okay,
missing.
just a second.
what-
No, I think they talked about it.
My concern is that dealing with Wired West seems to be putting off us getting broadband.
You bet.
Yes.
That's what it seems like.
You bet.
So, how fast, if we went with these other companies, would we get broadband? And are they in the ballpark as far as financing, financials?
That's, I wouldn't say right yet because we're just doing the financial analysis right now. What I would say is we've got one that's proposing to be online within a year, another one proposing to be online within 18 months. So from the time they put the shovel to the ground, which would be the spring. So that's their proposal.
So with those two companies, we still get the MBI funds?
Right now, we think, but again, this is not guaranteed. This is, again, something else that we're looking at the financials, we're looking at their plans, and then, again, we're talking with MBI in order to ensure that we're going to get the funds. It appears, based on our discussions with Eric Nakajima, that we will get construction funds from MBI, similar to what Alfred's going to get.
Right, because that's, I have a friend on the Alpha Committee, and they say that, yes, they're getting money from
Yeah.
MBI.
Yeah, I don't think they
Yeah.
can withhold that from us.
Right, so to clarify, if you go to the MBI website, you can see their statement of policy as to what a town needs to be doing to be eligible for the funding. And while we have not confirmed this specifically with MBI, our reading is that we would be eligible for funding from MBI for these alternative plans, at least to some extent. Not clear exactly.
As a follow-up, I'm very scared that only 20 towns of the 42 are doing Wired West.
None
Well,
have
now-
signed a contract.
I'm saying 20 are approved.
No, nobody
No,
is approved.
nobody's
I-
approved.
Yeah,
Okay,
nobody signed a contract.
right.
With Wired West. They still are doing this whole, they started to propose their contract, but
I
it's
heard a
not-
number of 20
Yeah.
before.
Yes,
but-
I mentioned that.
But nobody has officially signed up with Wired West. And that is another reason why one of my concerns as a selectman very early on, and it's been a concern for a long, long time, is the fact that we're being guaranteed, we're being quote-unquote guaranteed, something like $40 monthly service. I don't think that's gonna come true. I think it would be, under Wired West, if we were to wait and go with them, it's gonna be significantly higher. And I'm seeing that model start to creep up
I
now.
don't see how they can come up with any
No.
numbers anyway without
No.
having any.
No.
But we do have, I think, really firm proposals from our other two vendors, and I think viable proposals, but again, we have to evaluate that. We really do have to evaluate it closely, and that's why Eric is from the Finance Committee, I'm from the Board of Selectmen. Jeff is former, was it assistant provost or what?
Yes. However relevant that may be.
No, but I think he's got a technology background, and plus, John has got, he was around when Price was still a corporal working for Verizon. So, you have a lot of people with the experience, and we're trying to look at that now and make some kind of a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen. And we hope we're right.
Okay.
Now, with the other two companies who are guaranteeing a year or 18 months,
They're not guaranteeing.
They're not guaranteeing
Nobody's
anything.
guaranteeing anything.
Proposing.
Including Wired
They're proposing.
West.
okay.
Nobody
So
has
then,
ever-
These are all proposals, every
Yeah.
one of them.
Yeah.
And,
but if they're proposing a year, they have reason to believe that they can accomplish that. Will we include in a contract financial penalties if they don't meet their goal?
I don't think so.
The contract has to be
Has to be
signed by
done.
both parties, Kevin.
has to be written and
Yes.
signed, and it's not. Nothing's been signed.
Nobody would ever sign such a contract. This
People
is a-
make contracts with financial penalties all the
You
time.
might sign them, but this is not simple, old-fashioned construction. This is more complicated.
Well, I understand. That's why anyone suggesting they can do it in a year by digging the hole, every time they have to go up a pole, it's going to be an issue.
What?
Every time they hit a problem and they have to go above ground, they have to,
Who says they're going below ground?
well,
That's
One
one
of
of
the
the proposals,
proposals.
to do it buried.
One of the proposals is to bury it all.
and that was,
Or very substantially all.
I don't think that's something we're really prepared to be
No.
working on
It
tonight.
ain't, no.
I think
No.
what we did is, in putting together the agenda tonight, is one, we're gonna talk about the letter from MBI, and I think we're pretty much beating that to death. And there's really not much we can do about it, I think, other than what we've already done. And what I would like to do is move on to the financials, if we could, and ask Jeff to weigh in on that
Before you do that, could I just make a comment, because I've been entirely on the outside about these discussions. But clearly, there seem to be problems between Wired West and MBI, and so it looks